I have spent about the last 3 weeks crocheting this cardigan, which you can see here. As I'm sure you all know, it's based on the famous Harry Styles cardigan. Clearly I chose very different colours. While these colours look amazing on him, they're just not the kind of colours I wear. I tried to keep the overall look of the cardigan the same. We have the squares, it's quite oversized. Got a collar, got this thing down the middle, and the ribbing on the end of the sleeves and the end of here. Today I'm going to be telling you all about how I made this. And if you've been wanting to make the Harry Styles cardigan, hopefully it'll help you out a bit. I found it immensely confusing trying to figure out how to make this, so hopefully this will erase some of that confusion for you. Obviously, if you follow what I did, you don't have to use these colours. You can do the actual Harry colours or pick your own colours. So yeah, let's get into how I made this. So here is the wool I used. Quick note, I call any kind of yarn wool. It's not actually wool. It is 55% acrylic and 45% cotton. I don't actually know what these things mean, but if you're looking to get some similar stuff to what I used for this kind of look, that is what it is. However, if you're in Australia, I'm sure you'll be able to track this down. It's pretty much in every wool shop you find. Otherwise, any kind of chunky wool will do you just fine. I actually didn't have a lot of choice when it came to colours, which is kind of good because otherwise I'd get overwhelmed and just never decide. But I knew I wanted to use purple, pink, green, and white. And then for my last colour, the only other chunky wool that I had was this one, which was an obvious no, and this one, which was very tempting, and I actually started doing the cardigan with this colour wool. However, as soon as I did the first square, compared to the other squares, it was just way too bright. It didn't have the pastel look I was going for, so I said goodbye, and I replaced it with this brown wool. So yeah, that was my colour choice process. If I had infinite choices of all the colours, I would use like 5 different shades of purple, but honestly, I don't know a single brand that stocks 5 different shades of purple. If you know one, let me know and I'll make another one that's all purple. But yeah, these were the colours. And in terms of crochet hooks, I used, for most of the cardigan, I used this one. It's an 8mm crochet hook. It says USL 11, so if you're from the US and you know what that means, I don't know if that's helpful. And then for the cuffs and the thing down the bottom, whatever you call that, I used 7mm. So those are the supplies that you need. You'll also need a wool needle. Oh my gosh, if you've watched my bee video, you will know that I ordered a yarn needle to make my bee and it just didn't show up. Anyway, the ending to that story is that it spent 2 weeks, literally in my suburb. It was just chilling at a depot in my suburb before it finally arrived here. It was literally coming from like a few suburbs away and it took 3 weeks to get here. I don't know where it went. I'm looking in my crochet supplies drawer now and I realised that I've lost it. Alright, I'll look for that later. It's in all the footage of me sewing this together. I know I keep doing this like I'm some kind of scarecrow, but I just want you to see all my hard work. So yeah, I watched lots of TikToks, I watched lots of YouTube videos, and honestly, none of them really gave me like a solid plan of what I was going to do. So I dove into this very confused and feeling like it wasn't going to work out at all. Obviously it did. But what helped me the most was actually looking at the official J.W. Anderson pattern. So if you don't know, this cardigan was made by a company, a designer called J.W. Anderson. I'd never heard of them before the whole Harry cardigan thing happened. I think, well, it must be a designer brand because the cardigan, actual Harry's cardigan, was $1,600. So yeah, that's kind of why everyone's making it, because most people can't afford that much for a cardigan. Anyway, so the company was really thrilled when they saw everyone making it and released an official pattern of the cardigan, and they also released a YouTube video. When I looked at the pattern, honestly, it could have been another language. It was so confusing, but it did have these handy photos, diagrams. This kind of just made me realise how it would all fit together, and I was like, oh, okay, I think I get it. I also watched about 2 minutes of the video, so I can't really speak for the other 9 minutes, but in the 2 minutes that I watched, the person crocheted 1 square, and then instead of finishing it off like most people I've seen on TikTok and YouTube do, she actually started knitting the next one into the square, so she just changed colour and kept knitting, and I was like, oh my god, that's so much easier than crocheting like 58 squares. I actually have no idea how many squares are on this jumper. I need to do some maths. There was 60 squares on my jumper. I was so close. I can't remember what I was talking about, so I need to catch myself up. Most people did the squares, finished off the square, moved on to the next square, but she, in her video, knitted a square, changed colour, knitted another square, changed colour, knitted another square, and I was like, that's what I'm doing with crocheting. Just because for me, sewing stuff together is like a lot more effort than crocheting. It's so easy to just sit there and crochet, but when you're sewing, it's like a whole thing, and you have to weave in all the ends and tie everything off and make it look nice. So I was like, yeah, I'm doing that. So here's how how I did my squares. I wanted my squares to be 10 stitches wide. So for the first row of stitches, I did 11 because you need a turning stitch at the end. So I realized I didn't actually explain what a turning stitch is, so I'll give you a quick rundown in case you don't know. So I go into the last stitch of the row, do my single crochet, then I just do a chain at the end. That's my turning stitch. Then I turn around and go into the second loop of the hoop. Yeah, and then you do another 10 stitches and a turning stitch and another 10 stitches. And I did that for 10 rows until I had this lovely square. And then I just changed colours. And the plan was to do 10 rows in the green as well. However, I clearly can't count. And I did 11 rows. And then in the square after that, I didn't even count the rows. I just measured that square against the previous square. And I did the same thing for the following square. So then I had my first panel, which was 10 stitches. The first square was 10 rows. All the other squares were 11 rows. And then when I made every other panel on the back of the jacket, instead of counting the rows, I just measured each square against my first panel. So every panel had that mistake from that first square. And by the time I realized I had already crocheted the whole back piece, and I was like, there's no going back now. This mistake is sticking with me now. But to be honest, I was looking at Harry's cardigan, and most of the squares are like rectangles, so you know, it wasn't a mistake. I was just trying to achieve the true Harry look. Anyway, so let's backtrack a bit. You can see here that I laid all my panels out on the back of a jumper I already had. So it was a jumper that I liked the fit of, it was a bit oversized, and I just used that as a size reference. Because in the original image on the J.W. Anderson pattern, they had 6 panels, but I'm assuming Harry Styles kind of has a bit broader shoulders than I do, so I'm gonna need less panels going across. I wasn't sure if I'd need 4 or 5, and I did 4, and I was like, no, I think I'd like 1 more. It probably would have still fit with 4, but yeah, I wanted it to be oversized like his. So yeah, as I did them, I just lined them out on my jacket. Now, in terms of picking which colours went where, I had no plan. I just made sure that none of the exact same colour was next to any of the other exact same colour. So I didn't want like 2 purple squares next to each other. Diagonal was fine, but not like directly next to each other or directly above or below each other. Now you may be looking at this crazy square on the back of the jumper. Well, there are 2 of them. It may look like a crazy pattern to you, but yeah, this crazy pattern here, I was trying to recreate the crazy pattern that's on some of the squares on Harry Styles' jumper. I don't even know what that pattern is called on his jumper, but the way I did it with crocheting was called a houndstooth stitch. So when I was watching Let's Be on TikTok, that's how they did theirs with their crochet jumper. So I was like, yep, that's what I'm going to do. And I looked up some tutorials of how to do houndstooth stitches, and they were extremely unhelpful and I had no idea what to do. But then I eventually found a pattern. So it just had the stitches written out of what you needed to do to create this look. And I found that a lot more helpful. I was able to follow that, and it actually turned out to be super easy. It's possible I interpreted it wrong, but if you want to achieve this look, this is what I did. Basically, all you have to do is, I'm talking in US terms here, so you go single crochet into the first stitch, then a double crochet, then a single crochet, then a double crochet, then a single crochet, then a double crochet until you get to the end of your row. Now in the last stitch, you do your double crochet, but before you do the last yarn over, you change colours. Then you do a turning stitch, and then you go back the other way and do the exact same thing. Single crochet, double crochet, single crochet, double crochet, single crochet, double crochet, and it turns out like that. I don't know if that made any sense. I will leave the link to the pattern that helped me figure that out in the description, and hopefully if you want to achieve this kind of look, you can figure it out too. So yeah, with that, that was all my back panels. I probably should have just crocheted all the pieces, but I decided that I was too scared to figure out what I was meant to do for the arms and the front, so I just sewed the whole back together. So I had it all laid out in the way I wanted it, but then I had to flip it around as if it was a piece of material, so I had to like reverse everything so I could sew it together on the wrong side. Obviously I didn't want all the stitch marks to be seen on the back. To sew it all together, I worked with 2 panels at once, and I just sewed all the way down the middle. I didn't bring in any new wool to do this. I actually just used the ends of each of the squares. So when I was doing the squares, obviously you cut the yarn off at a point, so I just always made sure to leave it long enough that I'd be able to sew the squares together. And when I was sewing the houndstooth stitch to that brown square, I tried to sew in all the ends and tie all the ends together so there wouldn't be any holes there. And then once I'd finished sewing those 2 panels together, then I added a 3rd panel and sewed that to the 2 panels, then the 4th panel, and then the 5th panel, and then I had the back complete. And then I turned it around and I had my beautiful back piece. Yeah, that was the easy part, and I had to figure out what the heck I was meant to do for the rest of this jacket. I mean cardigan. So I chose to move on to the arms next, because in my mind I was like, I just need panels like I did for the back, and then I just need to make them into a cylinder so it will be around an arm. And yeah, that's exactly what I did. I just made panels exactly the same as I did for the back. I made 3 for each arm. When I was measuring it out, I wasn't sure whether to do 2 or 3, but once I had done 2 and I kind of like sat it on my arm, it would have fit. Oh, it would have definitely fit. However, it wouldn't have had the oversized look. So yeah, opted to go for the 3 panels on each arm, and then I sewed them together so that they looked like this. I didn't finish them off yet because I knew I had to sew on this before I did the final like stitching it into a sleeve. So this piece, and the piece that's down the bottom here, they were all done exactly the same way. So I did those with a 7mm crochet hook. So this kind of stitch was also something that I didn't know how to do. I had to look up tutorials. I got myself all confused again, and in the end ended up finding a pattern more useful than the videos I watched. Honestly, it's kind of confusing to explain, and I can't remember exactly how I did it, so I will leave the link in the description if you want to learn how to do this. Basically, you have to do something called a back loop only double slip stitch. Maybe you know what that means, but I didn't, and I was confused, so it took me quite a while to do these. Anyway, eventually I did both of them, and I sewed them onto the edges of the arm. Once again, I sewed it all together with the wrong side facing me, so then all the stitching was on the inside, and then I flipped it inside out and I had these cool tubes, otherwise known as sleeves. And I was trying them on my arm. I was kind of worried because I thought they'd be too short, and I felt like I was going to have to add an extra like square up the top of all of them, but I was like, I'll just work on the front and then I'll kind of look at how it all fits together. However, I actually could not work on the front at that point because I had run out of this colour wool. So I had to order some more of that, and while I was waiting for it to arrive, I did this bit down the bottom, which actually took so long. I was doing it while watching Phineas and Ferb, so it was a good time. Anyway, the day I finished this was conveniently the day this wool arrived. I ordered more of all the colours, which is why I have so much left over, because I didn't want to run out, which evidently I did not. So yeah, then I did the front panels, which were, once again, exactly the same as the arm panels and exactly the same as the back panels, just did 4 of them this time. Because I knew I wanted an opening, and I knew I wanted to do like an inner lining thing with the purple, so I was like 4 will match up to the 5 on the back, plus the opening and the this bits. Then I had all my main pieces done, and I was looking at it and I was like, this is not going to make a cardigan. There's no way this is going to make an item of clothing that I can wear. It's just not going to work. Just looking at it, I was like, this is just going to be like a big box. And honestly, it kind of is a big box, but the way it like fits around my shoulders somehow works. Maybe I'm just a box. But yeah, I just put my dots to the side and sewed it in the way that I thought should make a cardigan. I started by sewing the top squares of the back panel to the top squares of the front panel. Obviously, once again, I did this with the wrong sides facing me. And then once I sewed that, I had to turn it inside out. So then I sewed together the bottom 2 squares on the very side. And I left the top 2 squares open so that there was a hole for my arm to go in. It kind of looked like a cute vest. It was like kind of boxy. But as soon as I put the arm on, what happened was, so this panel here and this panel here, I thought were going to be part of the front, which like they kind of are, but not really. They're more part of the side. And you see this one here was on the front, but it actually kind of turned into the sleeve. Somehow it just worked. I don't know how, it just came together. So I still needed to do this. So what I decided to do, instead of crocheting like a long thing and sewing it on, I just crocheted directly into the cardigan, which is something I hadn't done before, and I kind of just hoped it would work, and it did, and it looks really good. Like, I'm really happy with how it looks connected to the squares. I just went right from one end around to the other and all the way back and all the way back. I think I did 4 rows, but apparently I can't count rows. So then it was like my jacket. I was like losing my mind. I was like, oh my god, I actually crocheted a jacket. At most points of this journey, I didn't think this was gonna work. I just did not think it was gonna work. I had no confidence in myself. But yeah, I was over the moon when I tried this on. I was like, this is cool. Like, I made this and it fits and it looks kind of cool. Like, it looks like the look that I imagined in my head, and it's cute colors and it fits, and it's a cardigan that goes on my arms and my shoulders. It was a very proud moment for me. I feel like a proud parent when I look at it. So yeah, for the collar, I was on the fence about whether I even wanted to do a collar, because I was like, I don't know how to do a collar, but then I looked it up and I found nothing. All I could find when I looked up crochet cardigan collars was baby cardigans. Only baby cardigans. And honestly, I would have used one of those baby cardigan patterns and just made it bigger, but I couldn't find any patterns. Like, it'd be a picture of the cardigan and then it'd be like linked to the pattern, and the pattern just wasn't there. So don't ask me what's going on in the baby cardigan crocheting community. I have no idea. Eventually though, I'm not sure how, I stumbled across a YouTube video which taught me exactly how to make the kind of cardigan I wanted. It was very straightforward. The tutorial was fabulous. I will link it below. You kind of just crocheted into this lining bit. I keep calling it a lining, this inner bit. I have no idea what to call it. But yeah, you crocheted into that and then you increased at the end of each row and went around, so it would make like a triangle thing. I don't know how to make it sit like quite flat. Maybe I just need to stretch it or something, I don't know. It keeps curling around. So yeah, I had my collar, and the only other thing that was on Harry's cardigan that I didn't add to mine was buttons, mostly because I didn't have any buttons. I also don't know how to crochet buttonholes, like I'm sure I could have figured it out, but yeah, I didn't have any appropriate size buttons, so I just left it. I don't usually button up cardigans anyway, so like that wasn't a big deal for me. Oh yeah, I also forgot the like 2 hours I had to spend cleaning up all the loose threads that I left and didn't sort out along the way. I recommend you do it as you go. It will save you a lot of pain later. But yeah, it's really comfy. I really like this wool and the way it feels and the way it falls. There are a couple of things I actually need to fix on this cardigan already. There's like a hole here. I don't know how that happened. But yeah, once I finished it was time for me and my cardigan to do some modelling, which, you know, went great because I know so much about modelling. I'm just really bringing out my inner model here. And also Fairy, I worked so hard to teach her to sit down and not jump up that as soon as she saw this cardigan, she forgot everything she'd ever learned and she just wanted to jump up and eat it. But you know, normally if she tries to pull on my clothes, it's not that big a deal, but I was like, I made this, you're not destroying it. Fortunately, she did not destroy it. I finished my modelling with my cardigan. I did such a great job, don't you think? Anyway, that is pretty much it about how I made this cardigan. Not even pretty much, that is completely it. It is finished, I wear it all the time, and by that I mean I've been wearing it this morning. Fortunately for me, Australia just entered spring, so I chose a great time to make a really warm, cozy cardigan. But there are still some cold days, so I will enjoy it for now. But thank you so much for watching and listening to me talk about how I made this. If you have any questions, anything I wasn't clear about, anything I missed out, let me know, ask me in the comments. I will try to answer as well as I can. But yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you like my cardigan. I don't really care if you don't because I love it. Anyway, I will see you again soon. Bye!